Eject. Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Debbie and today we are here to talk about the Johnny Depp versus NGN, aka The Sun trial from the UK. So we're just here to kind of react and go over everything from the case. So today we are discussing day 14. So I'm gonna go through the Sky News website, which is not the most reliable, but I'm a little bit behind, so we're gonna just try to catch up here. So on day 14 they had Whitney Henriquez come back, which is Amber's sister, and they're gonna have Tillet Wright and Raquel Pennington and Amber's acting coach. I forget her name, but yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so they start off by saying, Depp's lawyers, David Sherborne tells the court that Amber Heard, who has been watching from the public gallery, should refrain from using her phone so much as she has been doing. They were alleging that Amber has been trying to contact the witnesses by phone, even though they are strictly told they're not supposed to talk to anybody about their testimony. So that is definitely a big no-no. So he gives Amber a warning, I believe, or something, a warning to Amber. So first up is Kristina Sexton, who is the acting coach, or was rather, for Amber Heard. One of the first things that Miss Laws, which is counsel for Johnny Depp, asks, can you confirm you haven't seen Mr. Depp kick or throw anything at Miss Heard, which Miss Sexton confirms. And then she was asked what Amber Heard had told her about physical violence. And Miss Sexton agrees that it was shortly before Amber was applying for a domestic violence restraining order and a divorce. And she says she was aware of emotional violence, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. It says Miss Sexton says she began coaching Heard one-on-one from 2010. Side note, she must not be a very good acting coach, because Homegirl is a horrible actress, like really bad. Okay, back to it. Okay. And it says she agrees that she spent quite a lot of time with her. Miss Laws asks her if she only ever heard one side of the argument, Heard's, and she disagrees. She says, I heard Mr. Depp's side when I was hearing the actual arguments happening in the other room, but I did not see Mr. Depp regarding the arguments. Okay, so Miss Laws puts it to Miss Sexton that she's saying these things to try to remain close to Amber, which she disagrees and says, I have not worked with Amber for 3 years. And then Miss Laws asks, you accepted every word that Amber said without question? And Miss Sexton answers, I had no reason to believe she was lying to me. And then it goes back to Miss Sexton. They go look at Miss Sexton's witness statement, in which she says she was having such an uncomfortable time at Heard's 30th birthday party that she had to leave early. She describes Depp as being drunk, slurring, and interrupting inappropriately on the evening. Miss Laws counters as saying he was sociable and affectionate to Miss Heard. Miss Sexton disagrees and says he was clearly inebriated and stumbling and had to be propped up. Okay, side note, this is completely against what's his name, Josh, which was Raquel Pennington's ex-husband, said. He said that he was only slightly inebriated and that he was affectionate to Miss Heard. So there's a lot of people's statements that are kind of going against each other, because why would that Josh guy lie? If he's also almost more to he isn't more to the side of Amber, so the fact that he said that, why would he lie and just say something to back up Johnny Depp for no reason? So, and the fact that also Johnny had just come from a business meeting, I find it hard to believe that he would be wasted to that extent, because it wouldn't make sense. He was coming from a business meeting. Anyways, so carrying on, it says, Miss Laws says Heard is using you as a vehicle in this case, and says Miss Sexton has enthusiastically supported her. Miss Law says that Heard told Miss Sexton, Johnny will never let me go. He would rather destroy me than let me go. Yeah, so side note, that's obviously not true. He wanted to leave you, and by her own admission, he would always run away in the middle of a fight. So, which is definitely definitely not characteristic of the person that she's painting him to be. Normally, if someone is the abusive one, they will not be the one to run away. They're very possessive, controlling, they want to be around all the time. So someone who would retreat when there is any type of conflict is characteristic of someone that doesn't enjoy conflict. They don't want to fight. So it doesn't really add up. Miss Laws asks if Miss Sexton was aware that while Heard was telling her about the alleged domestic abuse, Heard was also contacting Depp and telling him he could stop the whole divorce process if he wanted. Miss Sexton says she was not aware of this. Miss Sexton says that when the couple were breaking up, Heard was worried about the repercussions from splitting with Depp and was worried about the bad publicity, especially with them having only been married recently. She says Heard said she was embarrassed but had to leave him, which is complete and utter crap because, as we know, Johnny was actually the one that said he was going to leave her. And so there's actually text messages from Amber to Johnny where saying like, oh, I thought you had filed, so I filed first. So basically Johnny said, I want a divorce. And Amber tried to get ahead of everything by filing first. Because a lot of times whoever files first does kind of get an advantage in a sense, so she wanted to get ahead of it. And she sent a text message, we love each other and can do this or undo this as we see fit. So she did try to undo this. She didn't want to get divorced from him. Basically, what I think happened, in my opinion, allegedly, and is very characteristic of people that are abusive, or it's like, if you try to leave them, they're not just gonna, be okay with that. They're gonna take great offense to it, and a lot of times they have very much this mentality where if I can't have you, no one can have you. So either they try to paint you in a bad light or do something to mess with you, but they won't just let you go. Like, there's gonna be some kind of repercussions if someone is abusive like that. So that is absolutely what I think happened in this case. Okay, and then it says Miss Sexton is being read passages from her U.S. depositions. We are hearing her answers to questions about the Australia incident when Depp's finger was severed. In the deposition, she says Heard told her Depp had cut his finger on a bottle. Miss Sexton says Heard did not give her more details at the time, and there was a lot of crying going on at the time. So again, we have yet another explanation for what happened to Johnny Depp's finger. Amber has said, he messed it up himself punching the wall. He cut it off himself from the phone, and now she had told Miss Sexton that he cut his finger on a bottle. So the story has been changing a lot. And then it says that they are now talking about Hicksville incident in early 2013. It says, Miss Sexton describes her experience at the campsite. I saw the wrecked trailer and I heard them arguing, but I did not see, I heard. When Miss Loss suggests there was no damage, just a broken light, Miss Sexton goes on to say, it was pretty messed up. There was a broken glass everywhere. I consider that to be trashed. It certainly looked more than just a wall light had been broken to me. But she obviously, side note, she obviously wasn't there to know who broke what or who did what, so how does she know? It could have been Amber, it could have been Johnny. She doesn't know. So she didn't specifically see that. So again, her evidence is hearsay because she does not have first-hand knowledge to see who broke what or who did what. Okay, so it said Miss Sexton has given examples of what she says was Depp's control over her. She says one example is the film London Fields, a role Miss Sexton worked on with Heard. Miss Law says you encouraged her to take the role. Miss Sexton answers, I said it would be a challenging role and would be fun. Okay, side note, I've seen that movie. It is horror, like a horrific movie. The acting is horrible. The script is horrible. Everything about it is horrible. So I question her competency as an acting teacher if she encouraged her to take this role because it would be challenging. So what kind of acting teacher is she? Yeah, not a very good one, because Amber Heard's acting was atrocious. The movie was atrocious. You gave her bad advice. You know, if you really cared about her, you would say run away from this plot, because it's better to not take a movie that sucks and just don't take it than just take whatever you get, because you start to develop a reputation as being an atrocious actor, and that's exactly what's been happening to her. Okay, sorry, moving on. It says she agrees that Depp wasn't keen for her to take the part. Yeah, I wouldn't be either. It says Miss Laws says that despite Depp not being a fan of this film, he stepped in at the last minute to take on a cameo role in the movie. Miss Sexton says she was not on set, so she doesn't know the details. So yeah, side note. So yeah, that's him being supportive, and that's not him being a controlling husband. That's him being real and telling her what everyone else said, all the critics have said. The movie sucked. And it's him caring about her career. So I don't see how that's a bad thing. Obviously, Johnny Depp's one of the biggest movie stars in the whole world. He obviously knows what he's talking about. And this, you know, nobody acting teacher, like, Amber should be listening to Johnny Depp, not this, you know, Mickey Mouse acting teacher that obviously doesn't know what she's talking about. Carrying on. Okay. It says Miss Laws says it's public knowledge that the film was a critical disaster and wasn't released for years. Miss Sexton says, I was told about difficulties with body doubles in the film, and I knew that Amber was not happy with it. Miss Laws says it's a bad example of Depp being controlling, and also says on this occasion Miss Sexton's advice was wrong while Depp's was right. No shit. Yeah. So Miss Laws asks Miss Sexton if Heard regularly wore makeup. Miss Sexton says no. Heard often wore very little or no makeup. She adds she didn't really wear makeup in the daytime, which, side note, completely contradicts what Heard has been saying. She said every time she leaves the house she's always wearing makeup, which if you have seen paparazzi pictures of her, it's very clear that she most of the time does not wear makeup. So Miss Sexton actually confirms this, and she says she didn't really wear makeup during the daytime. So that is a contradiction. Then we go to the cross-examination of Miss Sexton by Miss Wass, who is the lawyer for the son. Miss Sexton confirms that she had not been told previously that Depp's finger had been injured with a bottle that he alleged was thrown by Heard. Wait, so she said that she had not been told that, which is contradicting to what she had just said. I don't understand. It says Miss Laws asks her when she first became aware that anything had happened in Australia in 2015. Miss Sexton says when Heard returned from Australia, she said that they had had a horrible time. They were fighting the whole time. Again, this is, I'm guessing the 3-day hostage situation where she had a phone. She could have called somebody, and the bedroom had a sliding door at the patio that went outside, so she could have left. It says Miss Sexton tells the court she has a pretty good knowledge of makeup and took several makeup courses at the start of her career. Describing Heard's routine, Miss Sexton says she wore very little, just foundation or lip or cheek tint if it was daytime. If it was the evening event, someone would do her makeup for her. What? She had literally just said that she doesn't wear makeup during the daytime. Now she's saying, oh, just very little. To me, that sounds suspicious, if you will. That to me makes me wonder if maybe Amber is texting these people, like, to kind of get the story straight. She could have, because they had just gone on break shortly before this. So she could have easily been like, quick, say this or something, you know? Because why why when she's being cross-examined is she now changing her story? It does not really add up. It said, going back to it, Miss Sexton says, I remember seeing a great deal of foundation when she was auditioning for Blonde. That's what led me to ask her what was going on, as she didn't normally wear so much foundation. She goes on to describe Heard as wearing a thick layer of foundation. She goes on to say Heard was crying when she asked her about it. That's odd to just jump to that conclusion just for the simple fact someone's wearing foundation. I mean, it's a little bit much. So basically, the lawyers for Johnny Depp said that someone had anonymously sent them a video about Whitney Henriquez, who was known at the time as Whitney Heard, and which is Amber's sister. Let's see. So it says here, we're now watching an undated video showing a group of women chatting and drinking juice by a swimming pool in the sun. In it, we hear one woman questioning Whitney Heard about Amber Heard beating her up. It is suggested there is an altercation between the two sisters. The woman says, I can't believe Amber beat your ass. I know you could beat her ass. I'm going to find a clip of this and actually insert it here so you can watch for yourself.
You do it.
I don't want to be killed.
Did you get in a fight or something?
Oh, thank you. Got into an altercation.
Ow.
I already talked about it. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I can't believe Amber beat your ass. I know you could beat her ass.
We're not going to talk about that.
Whitney, truth or dare? Okay, did you really start the fight with your sister, or did she start it? For real, for real, for real.
We're not going to talk about that.
She really did whoop your butt.
Oh, we're not talking about it.
Yeah, I'm done. I guess I'm done talking about it.
All right, John, ask somebody.
Then, Depp's lawyer says, not only did Amber Heard physically assault her sister, but that the injuries suffered by Whitney are being examined by the women in the video. There's no denial that Miss Amber Heard beat up her sister, Whitney. He goes on, at one point, she visibly demonstrates her arm and her elbow to the woman asking the questions. He says they're examining the marks left from the alleged fight. Whitney also appears to point to her neck in the video too. So what that really means is the day prior, Whitney was specifically asked, has your sister ever, gotten physical with you? And she, as an adult, and she said no, only as kids, like kid stuff. So this video proves that she lied, and I know that Whitney rebutted it by saying, oh no, it was actually just a verbal fight and they were trying to make a narrative. But I know, you can definitely see a mark on her chest, and then the girl kind of grabs her face and is inspecting her face and kind of inspecting her injuries. So even though the quality of the video is not very high, why would she do that if unless there was a mark there? And you can clearly see the mark on her chest for sure. And she looks embarrassed, she doesn't want to talk about it. So in my opinion, that definitely does prove that she lied. And she, of course, is going to stick by her lie because that is perjury. And I don't understand why she would lie about that. It's so ridiculous. Because had she simply said, yes, as adults we have gotten into fist fights, but that doesn't have any bearing on whether or not she was beat by Johnny, then everything would have been fine. But the fact that she lied and said no, it stands to discredit her. And Whitney's testimony is very important because she's the only person that claims to have seen the violence, any violence between Johnny and her, specifically Johnny hitting her. So that is a big deal if she is now discredited. And in my opinion, that does discredit her, because if you're lying about that, what else are you lying about? In my opinion. Miss Wass says that the video was some sort of reality TV and lighthearted and flippant, and she says it should not be taken into account. Of course she's gonna say some kind of mess like that. Then Mr. Shorborn says the video was filmed in 2006 or 2007 and was indeed for some sort of TV show. He says it is rushes from footage that was never aired and was unscripted. He says it clearly shows there was a physical altercation between the sisters. He disagrees that this evidence is lighthearted and says given the importance of the issue over whether Heard was violent, he feels it is very important. Mr. Shorborn is applying to the judge to reopen the cross-examination of Whitney Henriquez so he can ask her about this video specifically. And it says the judge will allow brief questioning over this. Henriquez is now back in the witness box, and she's being shown the video. Ms. Henriquez said they were discussing a verbal argument between her and Amber for a really bad reality TV show. She denies it was a physical fight. She says the show's producers were trying to make a really bad storyline better. She goes on, they were trying to make a narrative that wasn't there, trying to make a really, really boring conversation more interesting. Side note, I think that's absolutely a lie. Why is she grabbing your face? Why did you have a mark there? Why would the girl grab her face, inspect it further? She clearly had marks on her. She's lying, in my opinion, allegedly. It says, Miss Law says one of the women is holding onto your chin and looking at injuries. Miss Henriquez says they were not looking at physical injuries. Miss Laws asks why she didn't correct the woman and say it was just an argument, not a fight. Miss Henriquez says she does not want to discuss a dispute with her sister on TV. She says, I wanted to shut the conversation down. I had no interest in talking about that on camera. A likely story. Miss Law says there is a visible mark on Miss Henriquez's chest. She says that's not true and that the lawyers are looking for injuries that are not there. Oh, what? Girl, what? She's just as bad of a liar as her sister. It's very clear. Even in the grainy footage, you can see there's like a circular mark on her chest. It's there. It's like gaslighting everyone watching this. Like, we're not stupid. We're not blind. We can see it. So, I don't understand, like, why lie about these things when the proof is there and she just continues to lie. Then they go back to looking at the photograph taken on 22nd of March 2013, which is the picture of the table with the lines on it and the infamous tampon applicator. Ms. Henriquez tells the court that she had previously taken cocaine with Johnny and that she first took cocaine a few months previous to that, just a couple of times. And she says this occurred before the date the photo was taken. And with that, when they first took cocaine together, she gave him the applicator. And Miss Wass asks what Depp thought of Van Ray, which is Amber's ex. Miss Henriquez says he wasn't a fan. She says Depp was jealous of all Heard's ex-partners. Time out here. Apparently, Whitney wasn't a fan of her either. Maybe they both didn't like her because she was not a good person. Maybe whatever the reason may be, Whitney didn't like her either. So then Miss Henriquez, Whitney, says Johnny was a kind, beautiful, generous human that we loved when he was sober. She goes on to say we were hoping that Johnny was going to come back. She says there then came a point when they realized that although he had moments of sobriety, that moment was not going to come. To the accusation she has come to the court to give false evidence, Ms. Henriquez says, I'm here because Amber was a victim of domestic violence, and that's the only reason. I'm here to do the right thing. Okay, time out here. So, if Amber and Whitney and all these people were so concerned about Johnny being sober, why was it that Amber would drink around him at points when he was not drinking? That to me does not sound like a supportive spouse that wants their spouse to get sober. That sounds like someone that is enabling or encouraging. If they really cared so much about his sobriety, they would support him by not drinking or partying or doing drugs around him if they really were that concerned. Because if you're partying and doing all these things, who are you to say anything about his sobriety when you're not being sober and when you're not supporting him in his sobriety? Just saying. So then they go to evidence of Raquel Pennington, who goes by the name Rocky. She says that she lived in Depp's penthouse block for roughly 2 years between 2014 and 2016. She confirms that her ex-partner, Josh Drew, who had given evidence prior in the case, lived with her. She says Heard lived there all the time, but was often flying out for jobs and coming in and out. She says she lived in Penthouse 1, PH1, which she says wasn't linked to any of Depp's other apartments. She says 3 of the apartments were linked. Miss Pennington confirms she and Mr. Drew had a master key. She also says they paid no rent. Miss Pennington says that she was best friends with Heard at the time and that they had spent a lot of time together. And she says that they're no longer best friends, but they are still close. And Miss Laws suggests Miss Pennington is one of Amber Heard's team of supporters. Miss Pennington says, I supported Amber in 2014 and 2015. And then she goes on to confirm that she's never seen Mr. Depp beat or hit Miss Heard ever. In Miss Pennington's statement, she says she became really scared for Amber's life after the Australia incident. She describes deep lacerations from her wrists to her elbows, saying it was worse on one arm than the other. She also said the soles of Heard's feet had been cut. She describes it as smaller cuts on the bottom of both her feet. This is how she describes it in her statement. She had gashes on her arms from the incident. I could see that her forearms were scratched and bloody from her wrists to her elbows. She still has scars on her arms from this incident. I also saw at some point that her feet were cut too. I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures of Amber's cuts, but they were very thin and not very deep, kind of going this way. Whereas if you're trying to kind of move yourself on glass, they would not be clean cuts, and they would more than likely, because you would be kind of making this kind of a motion, do you know what I mean, to move forward, it would be more of a vertical cut as opposed to horizontal. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not gonna move this way. You would use your arms to move you forward in this motion, so the cuts would likely be going from here downwards as opposed to very clean cut lines going this way, if that makes sense. I don't know, to me it just doesn't quite add up. Then it says, Miss Law suggests looking at the soles of your friend's feet isn't an everyday occurrence. Miss Pennington agrees that she can't remember a specific time she ever carefully examined anyone's feet other than to possibly remove a splinter. Miss Laws is keen to find out the nature of the cuts. She asks if they were long, deep, or jagged. Miss Pennington says she can't remember the detail and that this was several years ago. Miss Laws says, you are making this up. You have lied for your friend Amber Heard. Miss Pennington replies, absolutely not. Then they move on to part of Miss Pennington's statement that talks about Thanksgiving 2015. This is the passage we are reading. I attended Thanksgiving dinner with Johnny and Amber and a number of others at their apartment, PH5, in November 2015. At one point late in the meal, Amber went upstairs to look for Johnny and stayed up there for a long time. After a long time, they both came downstairs. When I asked Amber what had happened, she told me that Johnny had thrown a bottle of wine at her in the bedroom. I went to look and found that a full bottle of wine had hit and broken a piece of art that Amber really loves above the bed, and that a broken glass was scattered all over the bed. I went back downstairs and spoke to Amber. She was upset but just wanted to get through dinner without any further problems. And then they play the video of Thanksgiving dinner to Miss Pennington, Rocky. And Miss Laws asks her why she had received distressing news about her friend, that she seemed to be enjoying herself in the video. Miss Pennington simply says she doesn't know when in the evening the alleged violence occurred. It's confirmed that the second video was shot around midnight. In her statement, Miss Pennington says she went upstairs in bedroom 5 and there she saw a broken bottle of wine. Miss Laws is asking how this is possible, as earlier Miss Pennington confirmed that there were no bedrooms in Penthouse 5. Miss Pennington says she went upstairs and crossed over to Penthouse 3, where she says she found the broken bottle. Miss Laws is asking why she did not say this in the statement and saying she had no reason to cross over to a totally different penthouse. Miss Laws suggests this incident is a total fabrication. Miss Pennington disagrees. Side note, I saw a map of the layout of the penthouses, and while there are doors that cross over, it goes, penthouse 3 is down here, penthouse 5 is up here, and there's another penthouse here. So it's not just crossing over to the next door, it's crossing over to the very bottom. So you would think that that would be a significant something that you would recall, because it's not just crossing over to the next door, it's literally 2 apartments down. And it says, we move on to discussion around an incident which is alleged to have taken place in LA on 15th December 2015. Miss Pennington says at the time, Heard had a couple of lacerations on her scalp, as well as a scrape on her forehead, a laceration on the back or crown of her head, and additional facial injuries, which were a swollen nose and bloody lip. Miss Pennington says Heard still had a swollen face the following day. In her statement, this is how she describes it. On this occasion, Amber asked me to come over to her place to check her out. I could see that her head was bloody, where a chunk of her hair had been ripped out from the back of her head close to the crown. Her face was red and her nose was swelling up. Her lip was bleeding. It says, she told me that Johnny had headbutted her. She said that she thought he might have broken her nose. I helped Amber with her injuries and called for assistance from a private nurse who was part of the concierge medical service which Johnny and Amber used. I then took photographs with my phone of her injuries. I photographed Amber's face and took photos of the apartment. Side note, so where's the testimony of this nurse claiming that, there was the swelling, her nose was swollen, lip bleeding, chunk of hair? Where is this medical testimony? Because it sure would help her case, but so far, we haven't heard any. And then it says, Miss Pennington is being shown stills from Heard's appearance on James Corden's Late Late Show the following day, the 16th of December 2015. Miss Pennington agrees she can't see any injuries on the still, but adds, my eyes are not that good. That's what they all say. Miss Pennington is now being shown photos taken of Heard's alleged facial injuries. She is describing bruising under Heard's eyes and a mark on the bridge of her nose. She's also looking at a picture of a cluster of hairs which don't appear to have a root attached. Miss Laws asks Miss Pennington if she knows what the root of a hair is. Miss Pennington rather incredulously says yes, she does know what a hair root is. She then says she does not feel qualified to say if there are or are not roots on the hair in the photo. Then they go on to talk about Coachella. It says, Miss Pennington says she did not know that there was human feces left in the bed on the same morning as they left for Coachella. Miss Laws asks if Miss Pennington was drinking and taking drugs at the festival. Miss Pennington says she was drinking and taking drugs, and that she also believes Heard was taking drugs. She confirms, I was taking magic mushrooms and MDMA. Of Heard, she says, I believe she took the same. Miss Pennington says Whitney, who was on the trip, was not taking drugs. Miss Law says at one point over the weekend, Miss Heard was so intoxicated she was vomiting. Miss Pennington confirms this. She says, privately, yes. So, side note, Amber told the nurse that she was puking at one point, and when she was questioned about this by, the lawyers, she said, no, that's not true, it was my sister. Her sister Whitney said, much the same, that it was her that was puking, not Amber. But now Rocky is saying that yes, Amber was puking. So again, what does this have to do with the question of was Amber hit by Johnny? Honestly, nothing. But it does serve to explain that they can't get their story straight, and it kind of puts a doubt in their mind that was Amber lying about the fact that she wasn't puking. I mean, the nurse says she was. Now Rocky Pennington says that she did. So those are things that kind of can stick with the judge and make him think, is this girl lying? Because, there's so many inconsistencies when it comes to Amber's witnesses. They can't get their story straight. Whereas Johnny's witnesses have been super consistent and their stories have lined up, even though they're so independent of one another. Whereas Amber's side, these are all people that come from the same group of friends, and even so they cannot seem to get everything straight. So that is definitely a red flag, and I really think that the judge is going to take that into consideration, especially when it comes to how reliable the testimony of these people are. It goes on to say, in her evidence earlier this week, Heard told the court she did not vomit at the festival, which is what I just said, and that one of Depp's security guards, Starling Jenkins, was incorrect when he said he saw her in a car park being sick. She said he had mixed her up with her sister, Whitney. Miss Pennington says she would not describe the weekend as fun and says she doesn't remember sending a text saying it was fun. Then it says, Miss Pennington is talking about an alleged incident on 21st of May 2016 in the LA apartment. Miss Laws asks if she saw physical violence between Depp and Heard. Miss Pennington says she didn't. When Miss Laws asks if Depp was violent towards her, Miss Pennington answers, "At one point he knocked my hands away from his chest." She says Depp was using a bottle to destroy lots of things in the apartment. The statement reads, "Johnny was smashing and knocking off things from the kitchen island, fruit and baskets and glass bottles and flowers. He then grabbed his bag and stormed out of the apartment. He had a wine bottle in his hand and was sloshing wine everywhere. His security did nothing but stand behind him. No effort was made to restrain him, and no acknowledgement was made of the violence." And then it says, Miss Laws suggests it was action stations after Depp left the flat and that Heard immediately called her lawyer and her publicist. She says she was discussing the restraining order and looking ahead to the divorce. Miss Pennington confirms Heard was on the phone to her lawyer, but says she doesn't know if she called her publicist. Which is weird, like why would you call your publicist? Miss Laws is asking why the 2 police officers who attended the flat after the fight could see no damage. Miss Pennington says, "I would have believed that they would have seen the damage that had been done." Miss Laws suggests the damage took place after the officers had left. Miss Pennington disagrees. Miss Laws says that the suggestion that the damage occurred after the officers left doesn't come as a surprise to you, does it? Miss Pennington says it is a surprise. Miss Laws says Miss Pennington and Heard spent the next few days taking photographs of what you say the damage was. She says that was to support Heard in her application for a restraining order. Miss Laws says there was no formal report made by the police, so the images were not taken for that purpose. She says they were being taken in order for Miss Heard to negotiate a settlement with Mr. Depp. Miss Pennington disagrees. Miss Laws asks Miss Pennington if she knew that later that week Heard was in contact with Mr. Depp. Miss Pennington says she did not know that. Miss Laws says Heard tipped off the media before attending the court and asks Miss Pennington if she knew that. Miss Pennington says she did not know that. Miss Laws asks if she knows that Heard didn't have to be present. Miss Pennington says that she did not know that either. Miss Law's final question, is it true that you and your friends vied for Miss Heard's attention? Miss Pennington says, no, that is not true. And now Miss Wass is asking questions of Raquel Pennington. She asks whether Heard vomited in the car park at the Coachella Festival. Apparently contradicting what she had told the court before, Miss Pennington says, I did not see Amber vomit in the car park at the festival. So you saw her vomit at another point. Either way, it doesn't really matter because Amber had said I at no point had ever vomited for Coachella. So the fact is that, Rocky did say that she did vomit, so right there, that is a contradiction. So whether she vomited at the car park, whether she vomited, somewhere else, it doesn't really matter because Amber said that at no point did she vomit. So it's already enough to kind of create a doubt in the judge's mind, in my opinion. And then we have the final witness, which is Heard's friend, Tillet Wright. So Miss Laws is the one that will cross-examine Mr. Tillet Wright. So it says she asks him whether Depp was angry with him in May 2016 for taking a photo of his daughter Lily Rose and posting it online. She says that this was part of a long-term project Mr. Tillet Wright was working on. She says Lily Rose was 16 years old at the time. Mr. Tillet Wright confirms he and Depp were not talking due to an issue around this, but says that's only a part of it. He says when he spoke on the phone to Depp and Heard on 21st of May 2016, the start of the conversation was to ascertain whether he had been responsible for leaving human excrement on the bed. He confirms he could hear Heard and Depp talking, then arguing, and at one point he could hear the phone drop. He agrees he called 911 due to what he could hear and what she, which was Heard, asked me to do. The judge asks Mr. Tillet Wright where he was when he called 911. I was in Brooklyn, Mr. Tillet Wright says. Miss Law says, "You did not attend that apartment that night, did you?" He says, "No." Miss Laws asks if he knows that 2 sets of officers attended the apartment that night. He says he didn't know 2 sets of officers attended, but he did keep phoning until he knew help had arrived. Mr. Tillet Wright agrees that he knew on 27th of May Heard went about obtaining a restraining order. Miss Laws asks if he had anything to do with leaking this information to the press. He also says he did not pass on one of the police officer's business cards to the media. He says he had never seen the business card. He clarifies he has never had anything to do with giving information to the media about Depp and Heard at any time. We now look at text messages between Heard and Mr. Tillet Wright sent in June of 2016. In it, Heard writes that the media are gunning for me so hard today. In it, Mr. Tillet Wright says Refinery wants to run it, and then says they can use the same photos as for People magazine. He goes on to say that they need a transcript of the 911 call. Mr. Tillet Wright's knowledge of Heard and Depp's separation was long public by then. He says he was asked to write an article on her character as she was being portrayed as a gold digger. Mr. Tillet Wright says Heard asked me to speak to my experience of this, going on to say at this point everyone else was afraid to speak as they feared retaliation. The pair then talk about which photos should be used for the article. They talk about photos of hair, which Mr. Tillet Wright says he took to mean pictures of clumps of hair which Mr. Depp had pulled out in a fight. Mr. Tillet Wright says he doesn't recall if Heard sent him that image. Miss Laws says, "You never saw Mr. Depp being violent towards Miss Heard, did you?" Mr. Tillet Wright agrees. Miss Laws asks if it's true that Mr. Tillet Wright and others of Heard's friends had a competition for Amber's attention. He says this is not true. Miss Laws asks if Mr. Tillet Wright had strong feelings for her in 2016. Mr. Tillet Wright says he considered her to be extended family. The judge asks for clarification, and he says she was a very close friend of mine in 2016. I would support her in any way that was truthful and honest. Miss Law says Mr. Tillet Wright had a physical fight with Miss Pennington over Heard's marriage to Depp, and that it was over who was going to be Heard's wedding planner. Mr. Tillet Wright says this is completely untrue. Side note, it would have been useful if they actually had asked Raquel Pennington about this. Just saying. And then it says Miss Laws moves on to another alleged argument between Mr. Tillet Wright and Miss Pennington. He says, contrary to popular belief, we do not hang out together. Miss Laws asks if it was because they were fighting to get Heard's attention. Mr. Tillet Wright calls this an oversimplification. It says, Mr. Tillet Wright says Depp suffered from paranoid delusions. He said he was in a froth when he questioned Mr. Tillet Wright over the poo in the bed. I think as we all were, we'd all be pretty upset to find poop in our bed. I mean, I would. Mr. Tillet Wright says there is no way Heard would have been responsible for this, calling her fecal phobic. He expands, she likes to pretend she doesn't poop in private, let alone in her bed. He says Depp questioned him because he had overheard him on the phone asking Heard if she was safe. Then it says, Mr. Tillet Wright says Depp was not in a good state of mind at the time. Mr. Tillet Wright says he told Amber to get out of the house. He says he heard the phone being dropped and what sounded like a cry or a yelp. He says he then heard Amber say something like, "You just threw the phone at my face." He says the next thing he heard was Depp saying, "Oh, you think I hate you? You think I hate you? What if I peel your hair back?" He says he then heard Amber scream, and everything seemed to get further away from the phone. Then she screamed, "Call 911." Mr. Tillet Wright says he said back to her, "I'm going to call 911 to confirm it to her," then hung up. Miss Wass now returns to talk of the Refinery 29 article mentioned earlier. Mr. Tillet Wright clarifies what he earlier referred to as a fear of retaliation for speaking out against Depp. He says a number of people who worked in the entertainment industry were afraid of speaking up and saying what they had seen as they feared they would be blacklisted. This is Mr. Tillet Wright's final piece of evidence, and with that, his link is cut from the court. And with that, court is over. Next will be submissions of both the parties. I just want to share some photos with you of like Amber Heard and her sister leaving the court, looking so smug. They just seem to think they have this all in the bag, I'm sure. We've seen a lot of confidence from Amber, as in people booing at her and her simply waving away. So, I mean, only time will tell. You can't really predict what the judge is going to say, or I know it's Monday and Tuesday, which I guess today's Tuesday, will be Johnny. Yesterday was Amber's submissions. Today will be Johnny Depp submissions. So we'll see what happens. Sometimes they reserve they do what they call reserving the judgment, where they give the judgment at a later time, or he might do it right away. I don't know. So yeah, I guess that's it for today. I'm going to be covering the submissions as well from each side and kind of breaking it down. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for being here and all your kind comments of support. I truly appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this, please subscribe or like. It really helps me out a lot. And I hope to see you on the next one. And yeah, take care and have a great day. Bye, guys.